This week on New to You, a sure thing, Dan Auerbach. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the New to You Show. I'm one of your hosts, John Holt. With me this week is...
Keith Vincent and...
Julian Gage.
All right, so welcome everybody. This is a recommendation review podcast where we give media experiences, things out to the world that we have all just checked out ourselves. One of us has recommended it to the group.
And all based on a theme. And this...
we consume it, we munch it up, we put it in a nice little, package for you, the listener, to experience and decide if you want to go out and experience it.
I kind of think of it as like we chew it up and we say, open your mouth, and we spit all in
We're
there.
your little mama birds.
Mm-hmm.
Open up your mouths, little baby birds. We're going to beak
We're
feed
gonna get
you.
our saliva in all this.
We're going to beak feed you some.
Yep, and chew this worm for you.
Yep, chew it up. Might be some seeds in there, too.
Yummy. All right, so Keith, you're up on deck this time with last in our pick of Sure Thing. Why don't we take it away?
I've been thinking, I've been humming, I've been picking and I've been strumming, just waiting.
I'm going to be discussing Dan Auerbach, but before we get in, I wanted to kind of talk to you guys a little bit about the subject matter, the idea of a sure thing. So did you guys have any close seconds before you chose your thing where you're like, I would like to talk about this person, but were there any kind of runners up to the ones you chose? I mean, I'm guessing not with Jules because he based his off of a Google search, and I guess Google search number 2 was going to be the movie with...
No. I thought of the movie, The Sure Thing. That was the very first thing that I personally thought of, and I was like, no, I can't do that. But I was kind of stuck on that, so I started Googling. And if I had thought of it as like the thing I go to that I know I can count on, that would have helped.
Just based on knowing you, I'm surprised Werner Herzog didn't show up.
Yeah, I just didn't think of it in those terms. That
Your mind just didn't go to that.
no, and I sort of didn't let it. I think I just went for the first surface level thought, and
You just heard Sure Thing, and I was like, oh, wait, there's a movie called Sure Thing.
Yeah,
So I'm done.
yeah. And then I was like, I don't want to do that. What's another movie that has the same kind of
Well,
theme?
honestly, I'm glad you did because I'd never heard of the play, and I thought that was pretty cool. I found it to be really neat. So,
But otherwise, I probably would have done something like Werner Herzog.
well, now that you know that, can you think of any others? I'm just trying to. I don't know. I just feel
Talk
like
to John. Come back to me.
I feel like there's probably a small group that kind of fits this because
Yeah.
even people who I like, the Coen brothers,
Yes.
is close, but not
Yeah,
a sure
they
thing.
sometimes stumble.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It took me a while to find it. I had to really think about it was I believe in the tenet of don't judge a movie by its director. Don't go in with good or bad expectations as much as you can to
How do you
avoid.
do that?
It's hard, but you just basically you shouldn't go
I just never look at the credits.
But yeah, I like Paul Thomas Anderson. He probably could have fit in this for me.
Yeah, it's probably.
He's so
What would be a dud of his? I can't think of one.
I mean, some people there's controversial picks. Maybe some people don't like Magnolia.
People are silly.
It seems that I didn't see it personally, but his last adaptation.
Not The Master, the one after that, the one that's
Thread?
based on the Pynchon novel.
Yeah.
The
No,
one
no,
with-
not the Phantom Thread. The Incoherent Vice.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the one.
It's hard to find somebody who never strikes out, and because I mean, in my opinion, even David Simon, I will definitely give him a chance, and I'm curious if anything he makes comes out, I will check it out. It's not a sure thing to
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
He might stumble.
Well, I guess that's the thing too. I came in with it with also David Simon may not even take as many risks sometimes
Mhm.
as a Paul Thomas Anderson or some
Mhm.
of the people who I really, really love.
Mhm.
They go further, and so their work they have higher highs and lower lows for me. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
less reliable.
They swing for the for the fences and they
Yeah,
go
but
in hard.
I think that I don't know if somebody is good and consistently swings for the fences. I think it works out. Like Paul Thomas Anderson is the perfect example of that. Like, he's making movies that, I mean, you can't even sum them up. You can't even give an elevator pitch on some of his movies, but he's just going for it.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, I guess.
Yeah, I think I would put him in there because I feel like even his failures are really interesting.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like a Wes
And I'm not
Anderson-
even a big fan of The
Yeah.
Master, but there's so many compelling scenes in it. Sorry, to
like
interrupt,
Wes
Paul.
Anderson,
Yeah.
he has misses for me. But again, I think he swings hard and aims high. And basically, I guess what I'm saying is like
which ones would you consider a miss? Other than
The
me,
train
it's only the
one.
train one. Other than that, I'm thinking he's batting 1,000.
And it was still watchable, you know.
And honestly, like his movies get better the more I see them. I bet I would kind of
yeah,
like
I couldn't
that
watch
if I
that. I
watched.
couldn't
it
watch
some
that one again. Like I tried.
more. Is it Adrian Brody? Is he the X Factor?
No,
He didn't help.
I think it's just too like
I think it was just like three white guys in India dealing with their problems
it just didn't.
in
It
an
was
exotic, like the setting was too like.
It was also too like storybook dreamy. Like there was no like real tension.
I feel like he's went ahead and pulled the storybook dreamy lever. Moonrise
Yeah,
Kingdom is
yeah.
that.
yeah, but see, but Moonrise
The-
Kingdom has there's
Budapest Hotel.
the tensions in those read more though. Like yes, like it becomes a little like more like a diorama,
Mhm.
but
That's a good.
I
That's
think-
actually a good description of
I think
diorama.
with the Hotel Budapest, he did the smart thing, whereas he just invented a country,
Yeah.
and that way, he avoids
Yeah.
he gets the exoticism without insulting anything or anyone.
Well, and what also helps in that is that the framing for the storytelling device is someone telling you the story.
Yeah.
And that creates like a Princess Bride type like level of removal. And
Well,
there's
it's
a couple-
twice. There's two.
Yeah,
there's
two-
a
two
narrator
levels
within a
deep with it,
narrator.
right.
Yeah.
So whereas
But
again-
he did that with Royal Tenenbaums, actually. Like, sorry to interrupt, but I don't think anywhere in Royal Tenenbaums does it mention that it's in New York. And the things that they do say are not like the 300th Street Y. Like that wouldn't exist in that's
Right.
like in Yonkers. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like,
but that's I guess the fantastic stuff and the characters and the like situations they're in give you a grounding.
yeah,
Right? Like that becomes your touchstones. Those become like things that are important. You care about some of these characters, even if they come off a little cartoony or like two-dimensional and like colored in, they still have like some compelling
sure. there's
narrative
always- yeah.
and movement. I felt that the train guys they felt as more ephemeral than their setting.
Yeah.
And so it really just, if it was
So
like,
we're all pretty much in agreement, even though we haven't seen the Isle of Dogs yet, which is about to come out, that the train one is probably his only dud. Because I would argue that that's the only movie of his that I'm not in love with. Fantastic Mr. Fox is
I
stupendous.
really like that.
basically like to kind of come back out to the larger point is, we have a show about recommendations. We're very critical of our own picks and each other's picks and all this stuff. And it's true about the stuff I consume too, where I will love something
Yeah.
except for this part. And again,
And that's okay, Holt.
right. The
We
stuff-
love you for that.
The stuff that I go to
Your
for a
selective love.
sure thing can be like, I know what I'm going to get from this, and it's going to hit that mark consistently.
Yeah.
So far for me, like David Simon hits that. Like he goes for a theme, he tells it within a range, and there's character interaction and complexity. And so like that's why he's a sure thing for me. Whereas like it's conditional as well. Like it's sure thing within that band of what he does. And versus like, this person who I don't even know, like they're writers, and there are movies that not everything they do is a masterpiece, but they have made masterpieces.
Do you have any other kind of like or musician that you would put on a list of like just practically a sure thing?
Yeah, like
Like
book authors.
Book
I feel like
authors.
that's a pretty good.
Yeah, well, even that, like, it's just, again, if you read enough of them, like, they're great Raymond Chandler, they're great Philip Dick, and then they aren't, they are so prolific and they have so much stuff that there's some, you don't need to read every single
That's why
Philip K. Dick
that's
short
why
story.
coming up with this is kind of hard. It's
Right.
rare. It's
Yeah.
rare to
Yeah.
find
Right.
that thing,
And it's
especially
like
the
Bill
longer the
Sienkiewicz
career.
Bill Sienkiewicz is amazing, but he needs to stop making gifts.
I think
I'm all right with his gifts.
I've been
no.
I've been
like
racking
real
my brain.
rain
I
effects.
think Miyazaki might might be there for me.
Yeah, good
Because
one. That would've
even
been
his
good.
weak ones, I'll still really enjoy watching
Yeah.
it. And they'll still.
That would have been a good one too. So musically, I could have definitely gone with Radiohead. Radiohead's a sure thing. I personally, even though everyone I'm sure doesn't agree with me, I would have put Wilco in the mix as well.
Speaking of Radiohead, same composer who did the Phantom Thread was the Radiohead composer guy.
Johnny.
Johnny
Johnny
what's his
Marr?
name? Yeah.
Wow. So the guitarist from Radiohead is the composer?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's cool.
And
I didn't know that. Has he composed other movies?
He did another Paul Thomas Anderson. He did
Oh.
There Will Be Blood as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good on him. Like we've been discussing it, it's just not easy to find a sure thing. Especially like we said, we're getting older now, so a lot of the stuff we've loved might not have aged so well. Or Quentin Tarantino's of the world, and this is just my opinion, and it's just a taste. It's just an opinion of taste. I don't think that his style has aged well. Like the movies he's made into the future, I don't think have lived up nearly to Pulp Fiction. So honestly, I'm a little harsh on a lot of stuff. I think there's just too much good art and history out there that I'm just like, if it's not good, then I'm gonna move on. I'm not gonna try to like justify it and convince myself it's good. That being said, I landed on Dan Auerbach because this guy's just, to me, not only consistent but ridiculously prolific. So Dan Auerbach, you guys might know him as being, one of the two founding members of the Black Keys. He was born in Akron, Ohio, May 1979, so he's even younger than us, or than me anyway. Upon learning he's from Akron, I was like, oh wait, I think Devo's from Akron. So I looked up all these
Akron, Ohio.
Yeah, all these different people from Akron, Ohio. It's a pretty funny, interesting list. Mark Mothersbaugh and his brother, Jim Jarmusch, LeBron James, and this guy Robert Wolf Quine, Quine, Quinn maybe Quine. I'm not sure. He's an avant-garde, like really interesting kind of early punk rock guitarist from the 70s and 80s in New York, who eventually played with Richard Hell and the Voidoids. He played with Lou Reed, Brian Eno, Tom Wolfe. Eventually on They Might Be Giants and a Matthew Sweet record. The Girlfriend song that we mentioned a couple podcasts ago, he played guitar on it. Doing this research, it turns out that guy is Dan Auerbach's like second cousin. So Dan Auerbach's mom's family is super musical. So they were really into bluegrass. Just a lot of musicians came from that side of the family. I think his mother's a French teacher, so that's kind of like a public school teacher whose family is all musicians. It's kind of neat. He met his collaborator Patrick Carney, who's the drummer from the Black Keys. So the Black Keys is it started off as just a guitarist, a guy singing and playing guitar, and a guy playing drums, along the lines of like White Stripes kind of thing, Galaxy 500. They met in high school, or they literally just lived really like blocks from one another. They've known each other since childhood, and they formed a band because, as they put it, like Patrick Carney had a drum set and a 4-track. So they just went to his house and started playing music. They went to school and all this stuff, and in 2002 they made their first record as people do. They were in a couple bands before that, but in 2002 they put out their debut Black Keys record called The Big Come Up, which is stupendous. Followed up very quickly 2003 by The Thick Freakness, which is flawless album, and in 2004 Rubber Factory. So 2004 is when they showed up on my radar, and I went back, and by that time I thought I was late to the Black Keys party, but it turns out I was kind of early because they were just hitting their stride. I mean, these guys put out records every year practically until they really hit the scene. They really broke through with the Brothers record, which I believe came out in 2010 and was followed up by El Camino in 2011. And after that, like you just hear their music or somebody trying to sound like them in every commercial from then on out. Good for them. They should capitalize off it. It's great. That was just him doing the Black Keys for 9 years, leading up to El Camino.
Oh, when I was looking over his bio, one thing that jumped out at me was that he quit, like when he started the Black Keys, like he was in college and then he was obsessively listening to Junior Kimbrough.
Junior Kimbrough, yeah.
And then he quit college and started doing the Black Keys. And so I was like, oh, and I'd never heard of Junior Kimbrough, sadly. And I listened to it and I was like, oh my God, like this is clearly the influence
yeah.
for the Black Keys. Like it's a little bit like I was a little bit shocked by how much they sound like they're kind of.
Except that the thing that I always have to remind people is they were still a two-piece band pulling off that sound, which is not easy. Junior Kimbrough had a four. It was him and three other players usually.
Yeah.
And I mean, influences are influences.
Right, everything is a remix.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah. But it was definitely like the inspiration is very very. It's not like I can see that. It's like definitely. Even the production quality was to give it the vibe of his old records.
And that's a thing that Dan Auerbach has embraced forever.
Yeah.
This I want to make this thing sound like a record that I listened to as a kid.
Yeah.
And he achieves that flawlessly, I think. The fellow who introduced me to this band is Sean Leahy that we used to work with. Wherever you are, Sean, thank you. And great guy, amazing guy. And he also, at the same time, introduced me to Junior Kimbrough. He was just like, if you like this, it's this. So to me, the two kind of were just like hand in hand. So
that's cool.
Where I'm going with this is in 2009, Dan Auerbach put out a solo record called Keep It Hid, which I think finally broke away from the Junior Kimbrough influence. I mean, you can never shake an influence that has had that much of an impact on his life. But I feel like he took it to.
He's coming into his own sound more.
It's still not his own sound, really. It's still an amalgamation of all these old sounds. But I feel like he widened his net, or he widened his influence pool, deepened his. I don't know. Stick with my analogies. I'm sorry. And I feel like after Keep It Hid, when they came out with the Brothers record, that's when the Black Keys became something else. They were no longer just fuzz guitar, blues riffs. They became like a lot more melodic. They were playing with bass a lot more because they had backing tracks and amazing musicians accompanying them. Also, at around that time, around 6 years ago, what would that be? 2012, something like that. 2012 or 2011. Dan moved from Akron to Nashville, and so from then on, his musical projects just multiplied. That's when you really started seeing more of the stuff. He started producing records. He has his own recording studio in Nashville, and he's kind of renowned for having just this eclectic mix of equipment that people, you want it to sound like this? Dan Auerbach's the guy to go to. He can make it sound like this.
Isn't it? That's also like a very similar trajectory as Jack White. Doesn't he also have a studio in Nashville? Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And he also had similar influences.
They kind of have a feud, too, oddly. Having to do something with. They're very vague on.
Well, they're also producing record. Didn't he just do like Loretta Lynn or no?
Yeah, Jack White produced.
Yeah, he's
Loretta
been
Lynn's
producing
record.
a bunch of stuff. He's got his own label and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I guess they're both just super influenced by the sounds that came out of Nashville as well.
Well,
right?
they're super influenced by old music.
Yeah.
Old blues, where that, and blues is the source of rock and roll, and it's what became so much of the great country music. To me, it just makes sense. They kind of went to the head of the river.
Yeah.
If this were 40 years ago, they would have moved to Memphis.
Right.
They're both in Nashville. Apparently, there was something weird involving Dan Auerbach trying to visit Jack Black's studio and getting kicked out. So now they kind of feud, which kind of makes sense. I like that they feud because the two-piece band guys, from the cold Rust Belt, they were definitely breaking out at the same time too. And just when the White Stripes kind of went away, I feel like the Black Keys settled into that spot. Different structures to their songs and whatnot, but I feel like that need for that guitar-driven music was there. Getting beyond that, in Nashville, Dan really decided he was going to embrace collaborating because, for the longest time, he and Patrick Carney, the Black Keys, would be like, we're going to lock ourselves away and make a record. And so, since moving to Nashville, just being surrounded by world-class musicians, he just decided to start collaborating, like opening up his studio, jamming with people, and just coming up with stuff. And it really shows in his records. Like the stuff that he did for Keep It Hid is just out of this world. And his newest record just came out last June, I believe, 2017. It's called Waiting on a Song. And one thing he did on his latest record is he also collaborated in songwriting. And it's made some just like really amazing songs because of that. And the people with whom he collaborated, I mean, one of his collaborators is John Prine, which is one of the greatest songwriters America's ever produced. He's just an American treasure and sadly won't be appreciated till after he's dead. But
He has that song he sings as a duet that's real good, John Prine.
yeah, In Spite of Myself
Yeah.
with Iris Dement. Yeah, really, really great song. But John Prine, I mean, anyone who wants to who's interested in John Prine should just stop this now and go listen to John Prine. He's just
All right,
amazing.
I'll see you guys later.
Jules will be back pretty soon. Jesus, the Missing Years, that whole record is just so good. I was listening to this album, and then I saw the video for this song called Waiting for a Song, which is the titular track of the record. And John Prine was I didn't know that he was involved at all. And John Prine just played this side character. The video is following these like high school teenagers before they go off to college or something. And they get this dude to buy them beer at the liquor store, and it's John Prine. And I was like, there's got to be something to that. And I looked it up, and it turns out John Prine co-wrote this song.
Oh, wow.
The two records that I think are the kind of culmination of his best stuff are his two solo records. And what's so amazing about them is they're just a trip through musical history. Scratch that. A trip through white rock and roll from the 70s to the mid 80s. John brought in the Steve Miller Band a couple years ago for us to discuss. There's a big influence of the Steve Miller Band in his latest record, I feel like. There's just weird 80s George Harrison-like stuff in this new record. Just all really well done. Amazing achievement in just blending all these styles from Stax Records to, like I said, George Harrison music. Even a song that sounds a little like Jack Johnson. Just a tour through music. It's just amazing. Some of the people he's collaborating with on this latest record are like these just keystone players that have been on so many amazing records throughout history that you don't even, and they're just these session players that get looked over. You know, there was a documentary a while back about the Muscle Shoals players that are this like key group of amazing musicians that just are on all these great records because they were the house musicians of the studio in Alabama.
Right.
There's a similar story with the Wrecking Crew out in California, who they became famous for being on a lot of stuff, but really broke out being the backing band for the Pet Sounds recording sessions. These are the types of players that he kind of gathered around him to make these records, like the best of the best of all the studio best. And so he's like, yeah, the guy who plays guitar, you know, in Sweet Caroline when they go da da da, he invented that, and he's playing guitar with me. He's like, it's an amazing thing to do, to be able to play with, you know. So that's the type of people he's surrounding himself with. That's kind of where his head's at with music. Pick any of these records that I named off and check them out. They're all great. If you're into the Black Keys, I would start with Thick Freakness, and if you want to go from there chronologically, definitely get to Brothers in El Camino. There's not a bad song on any of those records. But the sweet spot for me is Keep It Hid, and his new record is just really great. Even beside the music that he makes and creates, you know, he does a lot of fun collaborations too. This collaboration he did called Black Rock in 2009 is this really neat hip-hop record that he produced. It's really cool. Like Mos Def is on there and some like neat underground hip-hop guys. But other than that, he started producing stuff in like mid-2000s to now. So, I mean, he's produced The Pretenders, which is like what a cool thing. I would love to even meet them, let alone collaborate with them on that level. He's produced Roy LaMontagne, Jessica Lee Mayfield. I believe I even discussed this record on a previous podcast, but he produced that. He produced a Lana Del Rey record. One of his most recent collaborations is with Dr. John, though, and that record is amazing. His Dr. John album just came out maybe 3 years ago. Is just stupendous. Just check it out. You know, it's really easy to say Radiohead is a sure thing, but they've put out like, what, 6 records? 7 maybe, in the 30 years that they've been around. This guy has been putting out a record every year since 2002. There might be some songs where you're just like, oh, another song that sounds like this, but there's no denying just how good. I mean, there are none where you're just like, this is crap. They're just, you might have a song where you're just like, well, that's not as good as the others.
Right.
But there are none of them where you're just straight up, that's bad. So
no duds across his catalog.
I don't think so. Producing wise, but just taste-wise, you might not be into Lana Del Rey, but that would be the reason why you don't like it. You know what I mean? It's just that you can't say it's no good. You can just say I'm not into Lana Del Rey, which I guess is kind of the same thing. I don't know. But that's my pick. That's who I would say, if you're going to dive in, check him out.
It was Ultraviolence was the Lana Del Rey.
I dug that album. It was really good.
There you go. Had you guys found yourselves, the Black Keys were somewhat inescapable there for a while, especially this is a part of John Holt's job is you're producing some audio stuff here. So I'm sure there was some requests to make it sound like this song.
There's definitely been, they've come across, and it's, it's within it's a broad band growing up in this time where everyone shares a lot. And so you like things, the edges blur. So it's harder to like define, like you could probably take a Black Keys song and put it against probably even one part of a Strokes song and be like, if they're not singing, you might not be able to tell the difference sometimes.
Yeah.
And same could be probably held true for Jack White and his bandmate there in
Meg.
Yeah,
but don't tell him that. I'm sure he would be offended by that.
But it's just sort of like, again, it's like when everything reaches a certain level of like quality and all the references are shared, there are times where like things start to become like quality things become indistinguishable sometimes.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that like they don't stand out and aren't interesting, but it's like it's easy to just like catch them all in one big bundle and say like, this is all this stuff.
Ubiquitousness.
Yeah. So
Or ubiquity? I don't know.
So it's like sometimes I just find myself like gravitating towards the like odd duck, like the things that stand out because they're good, but they're shoot off in in a sideways direction.
I mean, I'd also like they'd just been around. Like I'd heard them a lot, but I think the album that I personally listened to the most is Brothers, which I really liked. I think they're one of those bands like maybe their sound is like a little too consistent. Like I won't listen. Like I'm not gonna listen to like a bunch of records back to back because it's like you kind of want to just freshen up your ear palette or whatever.
I will say
But
their music definitely does evolve though.
Yes. No.
Definitely melodically and rhythmically.
Yeah.
It becomes more interesting.
Especially like I said, after Keep It Hid came out, I feel like he decided to break the mold.
Yeah. And I think that's why I like Brothers. Like
Brothers
that was
and El
after that,
Camino. Yeah.
What's funny is before you chose him, I'd never heard the name Dan Auerbach.
Oh,
you know what I mean? I just knew the Black Keys. That was it. Yeah, and I like his solo stuff. Like you said, like it's got more variety. He's really broadened the sound, and it's also like a little more like chill. Like which is kind of more where I'm at now. Like I tend to listen to things that are a little more chill.
You're more like the Malibu Man track.
Yeah. Yeah. So I really enjoyed checking it out.
I do find it interesting that like, because you go like, oh, who, like there's that music producer who like produced Radiohead's like OK Computer and maybe one of their other ones, but like they're just like music producers who that's what they did. Like they produce music that they may have never charted or if they had a band at all, versus this sort of crop of music producers who are like Jack White is a prime example of this as well. Like they make themselves, define and sort of describe their taste, and then go out and find other people and help them. I think you see that, I guess, probably in a lot of hip hop too, like where you have music producers who start a label and they produce albums under that label after they themselves have produced their own records. But I find it interesting that you get that.
Well, not to kind of conflate the relationship between Jack White and Dan Auerbach anymore, but both of these guys are like they're just constantly working, and you don't see that very much, but both of them in their own way is just constantly making music for them or for somebody or helping somebody make music, and it's I find it to be very inspiring, but at the same time I just kind of hope they take a break. Like, take it easy, buddy. It's funny, I was, maybe a year ago, I don't remember when, I was talking about Grant Lee Phillips' new record, The Narrows. In one interview, he talks about hanging out with Dan Auerbach in Nashville and using his equipment and stuff. It's kind of weird how a lot of these things end up being connected. Somebody needs to make the documentary about the Dan Auerbach feud with Jack White.
I want my hour back. Hour back.
Grant Lee Phillips would be the referee
They were
trying
the
to bring him
box.
to. Yeah, he would be Switzerland trying to.
So you're saying is you want a reality show called Nashville Music Man?
Yeah.
Welcome to Nashville Music
Called
Man.
called Nashville Outsiders.
Yeah.
About all these Rust Belt guys that moved to Nashville
Real musicians.
trying to take
of
jobs
Nashville.
from Tennessee musicians.
bunch of carpetbaggers.
But for a little bit of For Real Corner, my sister plays music with. She plays in a couple bands in Nashville, but one of them is called Yesterday's Makeup, which is an all lady lineup. Two of the members of that band tour with Jack White.
Oh, wow.
all the time. Yeah. In fact, was it on the Grammys? He performed one time with this all girl band. They were there with him, the fiddle player, one of the backup guitarists.
Cool.
I wonder because I know he's got like Llewyn Davis kind of bore this out too, but that was like the sort of folk revivalist. But then the folk that was a revivalist of like your mountain music kind of stuff. So I wonder too, like there's gotta like that tradition is still there in Nashville, and I'm sure like Jack White is big into like that old folk scene and the old like.
Well,
ballad
honestly,
scene.
I mean, being from there and seeing what's happening, the bluegrass scene is heavily rooted in Knoxville right now. It's one of the things
it's
that's going on.
GMOs, like they figured out how to keep the color retained
Well, there's
in the grass.
I think there's a radio station. I think it's called WBRX. Remember the one that Seth used to listen to?
Yeah.
And it was literally broadcast out of a trailer. That has become a staple in Knoxville. Like people come from all over the country to play. They have the show. It's a live show. I don't know if it's every weekday, but it's often enough, called the Blue Plate Special, where people will perform live in the middle of this lobby, and people are having lunch, and they record it, and it's become like bluegrass folk mecca now in a way. And it's a really big, beautiful scene. I really like it.
That's cool. Have you eaten there?
No, but I've driven by while the Blue Plate Special was being recorded.
Cool.
And my sister's performed on that as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. So where can people listen to Dan Albrecht's stuff?
Anywhere you can listen to music.
Everywhere music is sold.
That's right. And if you want to just get a taste, I mean, YouTube's always the place. Taste it for free. And if you like it like me, you'll go out and buy it on iTunes so you can listen to it in the subway. There's been quite a few good records that I've been buying lately. So
How old-fashioned.
yes, yes.
You could stream them all.
But I can't, see, because on the subway I can't stream.
You just set the download.
Just cool it.
All right. Cool. Good,
Cool.
Keith.
But any of you guys have any takeaways from that? Any favorites? Did you listen to the Waiting for a Song?
Yeah,
record?
I like that track. I listened to, basically I put like all of them together in one big mix and then shuffled them all up. So it was just like fun to listen to. It was really, I definitely probably need to listen more. Like there's nothing, I didn't find anything that I wanted to skip or anything. So that's a good start.
Yeah.
But I think I just need to listen more to it and kind of let it like soak in.
Yeah, it's true. I've kind of had in that like first blush.
So many of these songs are so many of the songs on the record are just really good, and they feel like a little time capsule. So check it out.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
So Dan Auerbach and his various produced records and the Black Keys. Those are all to check out.
Mm-hmm. And if you really want, like you said, you like stuff out of left field, the Jessica Lee Mayfield record is awesome.
Cool.
So check that out. It's really good. Jules had it on his phone a minute ago. It popped up as one of the records. Yeah, really good music coming off of there. And she's also from Akron, Ohio. That's how they ran into one another. I discussed Jessica Lee Mayfield in an episode probably 3 years ago after seeing her and Seth Avett do the Elliott Smith record.
All right. Good pick, Keith. Yeah.
Thanks, fellers. And go listen to John Prine, too.
All right.
I moved from New York with my boogie boy.
With such a question, there are many possible answers, such as hard work. Feel I'm alone in this whole of existence. I know it takes time, but I'm losing my persistence. The distance is too far to fetch, so I sketch on pages and hope that some catch the thoughts of my inverted worded music. No trial.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening to our Sure Thing theme. We're wrapping it up with this episode. You can find me on Twitter at Lord Joho, and you can find me on Instagram at board_ghost. You can listen to my RPG storytelling podcast at boardghost.com, and you can listen to my book club podcast at woundandstab.com. Keith, where can people find you?
You can find me on earthlingkeith.com. Pretty simple. It's a sure thing to find some of my old art there every time.
And you can find me on Twitter or Instagram at BeautifulJules.
All right.
And John, what was new to you this week?
What's new to me is the musical stylings of my new best friend, Clarence Carter.
Oh, yeah? Tell us more.
Clarence Carter, specifically this track, Patches. I don't know how it came up, but it's become like stuck in all of our like work people's heads. You just listen to it on repeat.
Oh, is it? Are they happy that it's stuck in their heads?
Yeah, yeah.
Are they really
like,
glad? Like, thank you, John, for getting the song stuck in my head.
Well, I'll play it, and then they'll come back into work and be like, "Patches, it was in my head all last night. I can't stop listening to it." So it's like I'll be like, Alexa, play Clarence Carter's Patches on Spotify in the living room, and then it'll play, and I start dancing.
Oh, you just now did that to somebody.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I go.
Somebody listen to this.
Hey
Just- it
Siri.
just happened.
Clarence Carter was he's actually looking around. He's an 82-year-old blind musician. He was born in 1936, but he charted. His first big single was "Tell Daddy." His was "Tell Mama," and then Etta James recorded it shortly thereafter as "Tell Daddy," which that version you'll know from Janis Joplin covered it, and big classic track. You'll find a Civil Wars cover of it. Those are all fine. The important track is one Clarence Carter wrote. Tell Daddy or Tell Mama, whatever. General Johnson and the chairman of the board, General Johnson wrote a track, another like R&B legend, called Patches, which is about, not to be confused with Dixie Lee's Patches. You can find Dixie Lee performing that on Hee Haw. But Patches is a track about how important it is for him to keep working, because his daddy said to keep working. His daddy died in the field, and the hammer
Worked to death.
The hammer of life sure beat my daddy down. But it's just like the cadence, like I feel like it's something I've heard before, or heard things similar to it, and it's kind of like it's grooves
don't
real
know
well.
from
It's
where.
nice, and
You just feel it in your soul.
yeah, the lyrics are like sad, and it's like a hard track, but it just feels good to to sing it and listen to it. Clarence Carter's Patches, I can't recommend enough. That's what's new to me as I dug into that, and that's on most of your listening stuff. And if you want another, Keith pointed this out because I was playing some Clarence Carter for him, but Backdoor Santa is another like single that charted for him, did really well. But that's what was the hip hop song?
Christmas Time in Hollis, Queens
They
by Run DMC.
they sample that Backdoor Santa.
So if you ever wonder where that that comes from Backdoor Santa. It's Christmas time in Hollis, Queens. Mama's in the kitchen cooking collard greens.
But I can't recommend listening to Patches enough.
So what year, or around what year is this guy?
1970.
70. Wow,
Yeah.
cool.
Chairman of the Board version's okay, but like the Clarence Carter version is just
Cuts to the bone.
killer. It's so good.
Cuts you right to the bone.
He streamlines. There's like some lyrics that he smooths away and out, and it just like it works. And his grooves are nice. Like he takes it. His range, his baritone is built for singing this song too. Like it just feels so good to hear him sing it.
You know, the way they just really emphasize that middle syllable. It's like it's not normal in a song to have that like in the middle. Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, it's almost a little Tom Jonesy, but in a kind of a, I don't know, just a real more street cred kind of way.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So that's Patches. So next week we'll have a new topic for you all. So come check us out.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks everybody for the sure things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure
I
thing,
hope
boss.
you're sure it was a thing.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right, gang. It may not be new.
Maybe it was new
New
to you.
Explosion sound.
But I gotta keep moving. This pitiful life is all about the music. 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 This pitiful life is all about the music.